thehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to take your calls at 866-594-4150. We've got them lined up already, so let's go right to the phones and talk to Dave. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Dave, what can we do for you?
I have a 99 Tahoe, the display for the four-wheel drive. It'll just go black at times, and then it'll come back on the clear blue.
Display for the four-wheel drive. Are you talking about the buttons on the dash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you've got the we call it the NP8. It's got the auto four-wheel drive with a big round button on the top.
No, it's just the four on the dash.
On his 99 style, that one won't have the round button yet. It'll just be the...
Oh, that's right.
It's the old body style. I was thinking he had a floor shifter and he wasn't seeing the indicator because we get that one every once in a while too.
Have you ever tried to shift it, use the buttons while the lights are not working?
And no, because I don't know where it'll be if it does shift.
Sure. Well,
fair comment.
Yeah, sure. No way.
So to try to determine whether it's the actual switch itself or the module, it could be either one. What we would do is look at it when it's lit up, and it's probably in two-wheel drive now. Then the next button you see on there for four-wheel drive, when the lights go out, push that button that says four-wheel drive. Just push it once, firmly like you would to normally switch it, and then let go of it. You'll be able to tell if it's in four-wheel drive because, of course, when you turn it, when you're trying to drive on dry pavement, it's going to give you that four-wheel drive stuck feeling. If it will switch like that, then just push the 2 button again and listen for it to click and go back, and that'll tell us that the switch is failing. Inside, there's a circuit that powers those lights, and sometimes it just goes bad. If it doesn't switch when the lights are off, it's more than likely the module, which is located behind the dash. There's a four-wheel drive module. We sell lots of them in our auto recycling facility, and in our shop we install a lot of them. So we know that's a pretty high failure rate item as well. When you lose just one light on one of the indicators, sometimes that can indicate that you've got a problem in your shift motor on the transmission or the transfer case, because there's a sensor in there that as it rotates, this little wiper moves around and contacts points and turns those lights on. That can also be a problem. And therefore, if you push that four-wheel drive button when all your lights are off and you hear it click and the four-wheel drive light lights up, and then you click it back to 2 and it lights up, it could be in that shift motor. So the 3 components of that system: shift motor, the switch on the dash, and the module behind the dash. And one of those is likely going to be your culprit, but I'm leaning towards the shift module by the way it's acting right now.
Would a scanner show it or not then?
Sometimes, because if you've got a problem with your buttons and you have a scanner plugged in, it will tell you that it's in a gear. When you push the buttons, it will shift and you'll be able to see it change on the scanner, but your lights won't come on. So your scanner will be your indicator instead of your lights on your dash.
You're going to use it as a visual tool to look at the position if you see it, but there will be no code or anything for such a thing like that.
Right.
There's not going to be a code. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. In other words, I'd rather be closer to a dealership or someplace because 70 miles from town, I know I'll be locked in 4 high.
Well, I mean, 4 high lock isn't bad.
Not going straight down a highway on dry pavement.
I don't want you to be locked in 4 low.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
I could be there in 2 days. But it's a straight shot.
Yeah. I'm going to go off-road, and I'm coming.
Riding lawnmower.
Dave, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Georgia and talk to Bob. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bob, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning, guys. I would like to talk about disc brake pulsation
Let's do it.
occasionally. Ultimately.
Was that a Toby Keith reference you just made there?
I'd like to talk to
I think he did. Occasionally.
I'll call you back in a little bit. We'll talk again. Intermittent. I'll call it intermittent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Disc brake
For instance,
pulsation.
I got tires. Yeah. I got a new set of tires one time, and I normally torque the nuts myself. I like for them to torque them down real easy. And in the parking lot, it went whoop, 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 whoop. And hadn't done that before. So I'm sure that was due to mistorquing. But now it occasionally will pulsate.
Did you call in
And,
before? Did you call in before
Usually
on
it's
this?
not
Been a
noticed.
while.
Yeah.
I occasionally throws me off because if you have a warped rotor, it's
It's warped.
always going to warp. It's always going to do that. If you have brakes that are super hot, they've been you're stopping a lot. As they cool down, they can pulse. They can go from faded brakes to pulsating brakes. I had that coming down out of the mountains one time, trying to slow down. Not around here, but I had brakes that were fading out a little bit. So I said, well, I got to try a lower gear than this off of Pikes Peak and just coast down a little bit easier. And as the brakes started to cool off and recover, yeah, they had some pulse to them, but then that went away. That can happen from the pads themselves getting sticky spots on them and things. But for something to be occasional, I'm trying to think of what could do that. So if you've got a wheel bearing, when you threw in there that it had that noise going across the parking lot, that could be a wheel bearing that's doing that. And if you've got a wheel bearing that's
wasn't a noise. It was not.
It was doing what?
It was not a noise. It was just the severe pulsation or oscillating. When I put on the brakes, it went braked a little and then let off and braked and let off.
In the parking lot?
So I know what. Yes, right.
Oh, wow.
It was a severe problem. That was cured by having the disc turned, screwed, and it was okay then for a while.
Yeah, if you haven't done it, if you haven't touched anything on the brakes and you've got a pulse and then the next day you don't, something has to be that tells me that the rotor's not going to straighten itself overnight. So that tells me that you've got something moving and it has to be in that hub to be able to move the rotor unless the wheel's loose. But if the wheels are tight and torqued down properly, they're tight, there's no air spaces in there for it to start wobbling and then not. Now I have seen Shannon's dad's got a Chevy truck, and he says, "Hey, I got a noise in the front. It's going roop, roop, roop."
Just one noise?
On this truck.
Okay.
Not the other one. And we've actually fixed the other one for it. But the noise was there for a couple days, and then it went away. He goes, "Well, the noise is gone. I'll come back later when it." Well, then it came back a couple days later, and that was accompanied by a brake pulse, and it was a wheel bearing. Now, the wheels this one has two sets of bearings in it, and they're apparently getting rusted up really bad in there. But as these ball bearings roll around, it must have been something that was bad because we could spin it and it would spin nice, and then we could keep turning it, and then it would bind up a little bit, and the wheel bearing would be loose, and you turn it some more, and it would not be loose anymore, and it would turn freely. So I suppose a wheel bearing doing that could do that. I would say when it's pulsating, get the wheels up off the ground so you could spin the wheel and watch the rotor and see if it's true. And if it's not, then when you drive it and it stops pulsating, do the same thing and see if it's straight. If that is going on, you got a bearing out.
Bob, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. A little bit more work to do there, it sounds like, to try and figure that one out.
It's tricky, but when you say I got a brake pulse and then I don't have a brake pulse, yeah, that's odd.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Idaho and talk to Destry. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you, Destry?
Yeah, so I've got a 2007 base model Mini Cooper, the two-door hatch, and I'm having an issue with it staying charged. About 3 months ago, I replaced the alternator, the battery, and it seems to not want to stay charged. After I replaced the alternator and the battery, it ran fine for about 2 weeks, and then after that, it died, and so I got it home, put it on the charger for about 2.5, 3 hours, and tested the voltage, and it read pretty decent. And then so I tested it on a drive, made it about 2.5 miles, and then it just completely died.
All right, so
And
last time we had a Mini Cooper
Yeah.
call, I went crazy trying to think of the name of a movie. You think I can remember it right now?
I think I can think of it.
What to expect when you're expecting?
Oh, I was thinking.
And they were going to have a Mini Cooper.
Okay.
And so anyway, that I'm totally offline. But when this came up, we never got it answered on the air. I think we answered it off the air.
You think anybody else?
Nobody else cares right now but me.
All right. Yeah, we're all tracking the same then. You're right.
all right. So it's not just a current drain where this thing goes dead when it sits a couple days or overnight or a couple hours. It is actually dying going down the road. So we are not charging while we're running. That system is fully computer controlled. So your alternator to charge the car needs an input from the computer to tell it charge at a certain percent, and then when it gets the full voltage, it shuts the system down to save on wear of the components, to save fuel mileage, all sorts of stuff. So they're fully computer controlled now. We need to find out if we're getting a signal there, because you've replaced the battery, you've replaced the alternator, still's not charging. So how we do that is we plug a scan tool in it, and we look at the percentage that the computer is charging the alternator, the PCM. If it says, okay, we're charging it at 80%, we would go to the alternator with a simple voltmeter that can read both DC voltage and pulse width modulation, and we test the pulse width line on the alternator, which is the trigger wire.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Chris does that first thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Gets up in the morning, checks his pulse width.
Yep.
Am I alive? Ooh, that pulse width is getting
If
really
there's
close.
nothing there, we know we have a problem with the wire going to the computer or the computer, one of the two. Now, if the computer says do not charge because the battery voltage is high, if it says it's like at 14.5, 16, who knows, if it says it's something where it normally should be, but we know it's really not because we've checked the battery, that has a voltage sensor built into it as well. That could be a problem on that car. So to test this, we first have to start off by scanning it. And you might even get a code. It might come up and say voltage sensor. It might say charging circuit open. So you'll know that you've got a problem with that circuit open going to the alternator. Those are things to check out on it. When you replace the battery in this car and the alternator, did that car have a factory AGM battery in it?
No, it had a Duralast battery in it, so that's what I replaced it with.
Okay, just a lead acid battery. Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious what it had in there, because a lot of these cars now are coming with AGMs, and I know a lot of people when it's time to replace, they put AGMs in them, because we're seeing a lot of one thing that can cause that. We'd suggest an AGM battery when you're switching them out, and here's the reason why.
Just real quick, Russ, I think we lost him, and we're going to lose some other people too. An AGM battery, if you've never listened before, is not the brand name.
No.
It is the
Absorbed
composition of how the battery's made.
And they're sealed up. So here's what happens. If you open the hood of your car and you've got a charging problem and your battery terminals are covered with acid, they used to make little things that had some kind of treatment on them to keep the acid from going everywhere. And that's what we use to keep you spray clean the terminals. The AGM batteries don't leak like that. So it protects your terminals, because terminals back 15, 20 years ago were pretty cheap. Cut them off, put new ones on. Now there's a lot of electronics right there. A lot of cars have an airbag charge built in, and they blow the terminal apart when the car crashes to cut the power to the car. That terminal on cars like Mini Coopers and things like that can run you $1,000 to replace. People don't want to do that. Some of them are bolt-ons, and they're a couple $100. Some of them are $50, but most of them are very expensive. So if you're switching batteries and you've already had a little bit of a corrosion issue, get everything cleaned up and think about an AGM battery when you're doing that. But anything else you've done for repairs on the Mini Cooper on the charging system that you've tried other than putting the battery and the alternator in it so far?
I put new terminal leads on it.
Okay.
But other than that, I haven't really done anything.
Okay. The next thing I do would be, now things you could do at home, look at the alternator very closely, where the plug-in is on the alternator, not the big field wire that bolts to the back of it, but the plug-in connector. Unplug that, look at the terminals real closely, make sure there's no corrosion in there and that they're not loose, that they're tight and making good connection to the pins. You may even find out that if you unplug it and plug it back in a couple times and move those around, you start it up, it may start charging. If it does, you're going to need a new connector or new pins right there at the alternator. So that's something you could do at home to check it.
Just one quick question. When the car is dead, I think you answered this already, I'm pretty sure, but just to make sure, it won't crank or start, correct?
Correct. There's no dash lights. There's no sign of life at all.
Okay, you answered my question. You did check to make sure if you had headlights or any other sort of power.
It's got to be fully charged,
yeah,
too.
just to make sure he wasn't having another problem with the starting system that was tricking him.
We've had that like on Tahoes and Chevys and the Dodge, where the terminal comes up to the fuse box and that becomes loose, and all of a sudden it just dies and nothing happens. And then it may, just after a few minutes, it may arc and connect itself, or you wiggle that around, vibrations, it'll come back
on. So a good wiring inspection in and around all the wires that go near the battery, around the battery. If the battery did have some leakage and you got any corrosion in that area, look at those wires really close. Those Mini Coopers are fun little cars, but they can really be a bit of a nightmare to figure out sometimes. We've got kind of a hands-off policy on them sometimes.
Because you've had experience with some things.
You can't win sometimes.
Right.
Mini Coopers and ProMaster diesels.
Destry, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Question came in on the YouTube stream. Will a regular battery tender work correctly on an AGM battery? Does it work the same, or do you need to pay attention to that?
Yeah, it should work just fine on there, but they do make more sophisticated battery chargers that will make sure that is optimized. Read the package of the battery maintainer, tender, whatever brand it is.
Yeah, battery tender is a brand.
Yep. Optima makes a really good battery charger. I actually happen to own one, and it has settings for AGM, small like motorcycle and watercraft, and then car batteries and lead acid. So it's specifically tailored to that, because a maintainer, it's not so much just getting the charge into it, it's how it maintains it.
Sure.
So the voltage fluctuates in order to keep the battery alive, and it needs to fluctuate slightly different to get an optimum charge in an Optima battery, or in an AGM battery as compared to a lead acid. Name. It'll keep it charged, but it just will be even better with a...
Now, I have two of them, and I think the total I've paid for both of them is somewhere around $26, $27.
Total? The maintainers.
Total.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to have the option to change, but will it be okay?
If you read the package, it may say fine for an AGM.
Can I ask you a question,
not
Chris?
In English.
I've got some cheap ones too. I've got some cheap ones.
Well,
I've got some cheap ones.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've got one of them that's on an AGM battery. It maintains well, but what Russ is saying, I'm not probably optimizing as well as that Optima charger can with all those settings.
Right.
They engineered it specifically for the composition and chemistry of the battery, whereas the cheaper one you have, it's optimized to give a certain input, and then, okay, I'm good. I'm not charging right now. I'm just going to hang out. I got transistors in here that say I shouldn't do anything right now. Oops, I'm on again. But it does it very gently.
When I put my watercraft away and I buried them in the garage years ago, I've got battery tenders on a lot of them and stuff, and they're open. But the one jet ski that happens to belong to my wife, I winterized it. And it's been so long I forgot what I did. But I winterized it. I put the seat back on it. I put it all together. I'd forgotten to take the battery out or put it on a maintainer. I thought I had removed it because I saw the trays there when I switched to an AGM. That battery sitting in that for 13 years, I turned the key on, it was dead. But I put my voltmeter on it, still had 4 volts in it, which kind of surprised me after 13 years that it had anything at all. But the lead acid batteries, in a year, they'd be dead.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. And if you like our Facebook page, you subscribe to the YouTube feed, you send us a note on an index card with a notch cut out of the upper right, and join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com. You can do any one of those things, and you'll be eligible to win a hoodie.
The notch is not needed.
If it came, though, you would put them in the drawing, right?
Sure.
Now that they followed, yeah. See, I think it's a good idea.
They follow instructions that well. I want to hire them.
Right, exactly. You could win a hoodie like?
Oh, like Gina Holloway, who listens to us in, I'm sorry, that was last week's winner.
Uh-oh.
Like Joan Keller, that listens to us in Danville, Illinois.
Thanks, Joan.
The other one can't win a hoodie twice.
No.
In this, like a week later, but so.
What about like 5 years from now?
Sure.
Yeah, because you'll
Sure.
just forget, right? I mean,
Sure.
eventually.
And we
Yeah.
can judge you if you have to get a different size.
Congratulations from our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. They don't care what size you are. They'll love you just the same.
Yes, they will.
And they'll help you get the training you need in order to become a great tech. Their cars, man, the stuff. Listen to the calls we've had on the show today. Charging system issues on a Mini Cooper.
Pulse width modulation.
Right.
Yes.
Just say that.
Some people, I've had some young techs, and they're like, I have no idea what that means. It's like, well, you're going to need to know it, because if you're the person that says, I'm just a mechanical person, I don't need to know electrical. Yes, you will.
And an
because
Oldsmobile.
cars, yeah.
That's
What's an
older.
Oldsmobile? But they're changing. The cars are changing. Electrically, they're changing. They're becoming all electric. Fuel-wise, they're changing. The fuel systems, I mean, everything is changing. You're going to need some professional help in order to get a good career in the automotive field. Visit uti.edu, find out all the options they have to get you trained to be a tech. And there are people out there that are looking. Like right now, CarMax is hiring experienced auto technicians for many of its 200-plus stores nationwide.
Wow.
If you're looking for a job where you can make a great living while working on the cars you love, CarMax is the place for you. Join CarMax and earn a sign-on. Join CarMax and grow your technical expertise and work with state-of-the-art tools and technology. Work on the cars you love. Join CarMax. Apply today at CarMaxAutotech.com.
See, that was smooth the way he just transitioned right in there. That's the kind of stuff right there that you learn, except it would be on cars. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
866-594-4150. Or maybe you could go like I used to.
Did you go to UTI and get that shirt?
I did not. I got the shirt just as a
Was that from like
employee qualification. I worked at Midway Chevrolet in St. Paul, Minnesota it was a long time ago. In the 92, I think. 91, 92.
Is this true?
This is true. I worked there for 2 weeks.
And you still have the shirt?
And I found the shirt. I just found the shirt, and I thought,
This
I should
story
wear
is
that
way
on
better.
the show.
I thought you made the shirt.
No, this is an actual. I stole the shirt, frankly, right? I mean,
You just walked by and saw, hey, there's a rack of shirts. that
It's got
say
his name
Chris.
on it.
It's got my name. I wore this shirt at work. I just didn't work there
What did
very
you
long.
do?
And I didn't. I was a car runner.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You did
Yeah.
work for the.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
So if you're watching the stream or the video,
yeah,
you
on
can
the
see
stream
it.
you'd see this, but
Hey, there's a guy who wrecked my car.
I don't think I wrecked any.
Ruined my day.
you know, nowadays we have some forms you fill out for employee responsibility and financial liability for things like uniforms because they cost a lot.
Right?
You feel guilty at all?
Not now. Although
Okay.
they did, I think they might be out of business or they moved. That's what made me think of it. Was I saw on Facebook somebody posted a picture of the building that's there now, and it was a while ago.
At least I remember driving by up there. The old one, I remember the Midway. It was gone. Like they either moved into a new one or they're just closed. But
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was the university. There were 100 car dealers on that road. I remember when I was a kid, I could always tell where
Probably
we were.
a Walmart now or something.
It's the light rail's gone through, so it's not even. It's a whole different ball game now.
It was that way when we went up to back to the 50s the last time, which
Absolutely.
was like 2008.
That was the road that you.
Yeah.
If you go to back
Before
to,
the light
if you've
rail.
ever been to back to the 50s and you've been on the street where everybody.
You could wear that shirt to Back to the 50s,
could.
and you would fit in.
Chris, I cannot picture you there working, living at any time in your life. And
You
there
would be
were.
right. You would. I was not. It was not for me. Let's talk to Todd. Todd, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hey, thanks for the call. Love the show. I've got a 98 Dodge Ram 4-wheel drive with a 360 in it. And when you hop in that thing, first thing right away in the day when that engine's cold or cool, whatever you want to say, it'll fire right up. But after that, after it gets warmed up, and if it's within 3 or 4 hours, when you go to start it, that tach will kick up to 15 and then it just dies. But it'll keep running if you help it for about 3 or 4 seconds, but it doesn't want to idle after it's warmed up. And I had a fuel pump put in it at 95,000, and it's got 130 on it now. So I'm just trying to figure out what might be going on there.
It sounds like you're bleeding off fuel into the engine, which could be a injector that's leaking a little bit and dripping in there. 98.
Okay.
I'm
98 is going to be a Magnum 360.
Yeah, and
So it's
I'm
got-
picturing this engine, but I'm forgetting whether or not it has a fuel pressure regulator on the rail. I think that one is
60, yeah.
returnless. It's returnless, isn't it? Just one line, no regulator, or does it have a regulator? Do you know?
No, it does not.
Okay, that's what I was
No, it
thinking,
doesn't.
that they had switched, they had gone away with that by then. We haven't had a 98 that style in our shop in but
A bit.
6 or 7
A bit.
years at least. It's been a while, at least long enough that I can't remember on that one for a fact. So I'm probably going to put a fuel pressure gauge on it.
Regardless, I haven't put that
Yep.
fuel pump in recently. We
Yep.
want to still look at
I'm going
this.
to put it on, and I'm going to look and see what the pressure is. Then I'm going to turn the key off and see where it goes after it sits for a couple hours, when it's going to give me this hard start, and see if I have the fuel pressure's dropped down. If it has, and you've got a new pump in it, let's hope that the pump is okay, but or if it's bad, at least got a warranty on that if it is bad. But then we pull the fuel rail up and look at the injectors and see if they're wet on the bottom. And we had one the other day in a little car, Subaru, and we determined, so this thing would bleed pressure down to about 10 pounds. It would fire up when it was warm, it would be fine, but cold starts, it had a hard time starting. In like days like today when it's really cool, you crank it and it was even worse. So we determined it was not. We had the injectors out and we checked to make sure there was no air and everything. It turned out to be carbon buildup in the engine that was making it hard start only when it was cold. And I'm saying cold like when it was 50 out, it was harder to start than when it was 80 out for the first start of the day.
I'm the opposite.
Are you?
Are you?
Yep. 50s in my wheelhouse. 80s getting a little bit warm there.
Too much to go.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you do have it sounds like a fuel thing in it, where it's, if you do have an excess fuel and it fires and then it dies and then you give it a little gas, you're getting air in that system. You've got a leak somewhere like down by the sending unit, or it's bleeding fuel down. That's where I would start. And the pressure gauge is going to be a great indicator of how things are going.
Does that help you out there, Todd?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like the show, guys. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
the
very
call.
much. Is he have any on those same era Chevys, which I probably have more familiarity with? We see that problems with EGR. Would that be anything on that truck? Not usually, right?
Right. And that one, the Chevy would have a regulator.
Yeah. In that era.
Yeah.
Interesting.
People would say, well, you see more Chevys than Dodge. They must be junk, right? I get that all the time.
Well,
It's
back
like,
in that era, they sold a lot more Chevys than
Yeah.
Dodges. Dodge is caught up now. They're
For
doing,
sure.
They're doing well.
if you don't like whatever other brand it is, there'll always be something about
And you
it.
know what I say? I say Dodge Ram's more responsible for the look of trucks today
Yes.
than any other.
I remember when that
94.
first body style came out, and I thought, that looks so awesome. But then as newer
The-
trucks came out,
The
I go,
commercials
"Yeah,
with the
not as good."
train and it would crush the truck down into that new shape.
Just to say
That's a
this,
big deal.
because it's relevant. The new trucks come out and it's always something. But the 93, the body style before that, we had one of those come in that was really clean as a two-wheel drive, kind of a base truck. We put it on our Facebook page just to let people know we had parts, and we had numerous people that wanted to buy the whole truck.
Really?
And they wanted it for parts. Well, one guy wanted to retrofit it into a street truck, but the other ones wanted it for parts for old square body Cummins trucks that they've kept alive that were made in that era from 91 to 90, 89, 90, 91, 93. I guess that's getting to be a big thing too, is building them big old trucks up.
Let's talk to Dwayne in Illinois. Dwayne, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Good morning, fellas. I have a 1998 Ford Mustang convertible, 66,000 miles, excellent shape, but I've got a gremlin issue.
No.
It's got the factory. It's got a factory alarm system. Got a fresh, brand new interstate battery in it. When I lock the car with the key or with the remote, I can come in the house and within, 15 minutes, the alarm system's going off, the lights are blinking, the horn's sounding, and of course I have to go out and open the door, it turns off.
And does everyone come running in the neighborhood to help you figure out what's going on with your car?
Dogs are barking.
Yeah.
He does the belly crawl out there so nobody sees him.
No, but it's no fun. Late at night when I've, getting ready to go to bed, it's like, oh God, here we go. Got to go out to the driveway. I mean, the alarm will finally time out, right? But I don't know where to start. I don't know if it's contact issues, door strikers. I don't know where to begin, fellas.
I just got to ask, how long does it take to time out?
No kidding.
The fact that you know
5, 10 minutes.
Okay.
The fact that you know means that you were really tired at one point
No,
when this alarm went off.
Just letting it go. Yeah.
But it starts again, right? It'll do it and it'll keep doing this. Time's out and
Yeah,
then it
exactly.
starts honking again.
It'll
Yeah.
fire. Yep.
I was out of town one time years ago, and my car was honking. I had an old Cadillac, and it was newer back then. But the horn was going off on the thing, and my wife gets a call from one of the other neighbors. Said, "Hey, Jack came across the street and was messing around under your car hood. I just wanted to let you know." And I'm like, "What was he doing?" He goes, "Well, he was laying on his back under the front of your car." He goes, I thought he set the alarm off," and I'm thinking, "Huh?" So I get home and he says, "Yeah, that darn alarm started going off at midnight and was going and going and going. My windows were open, so I went over there and I cut the horn wire for you." I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks." I mean, I guess I was fine with it.
Fine,
I
I'm
had
fine
to fix
with it.
But
I'll
I had to
allow it.
find out what was wrong with this car. It's next to impossible because you plug a scanner in, it doesn't say, like some of the newer cars, what input last triggered the alarm. That's great. Some cars will say cruise control. What
Okay.
deactivated it last? Well, it was last shut off by the brake pedal or last shut off by the switch.
Assuming 98 don't have that setting.
Not that I know of. I think the 04 has it, but when you get to the body style before that, no. So to find that problem with the alarm can be tricky. What we have done is, if they'll do it, if you say it does it every time when I lock this thing up after 5 minutes, we'll put it in our parking lot, we will turn it on, wait for it to happen, and then we will go through and unplug. Usually we'll start with the trunk switch and the hood switch and unplug those. Arm it again and see what happens, because a little bit of moisture will set those things off. They're real sensitive. If it doesn't do it, we know one of those switches is it. We can plug it back in, isolate which one it is. If it still does it, then we'll leave those disconnected because it could be multiple switches, and then we'll go to the door switches and disconnect those. We usually disconnect all of them. Try to find out, because you got two doors.
And you
pull 'em
can't
both.
just deactivate the alarm setting?
No. So they make this alarm part built into the vehicle. You could. The alarm is activated when you push the lock button or when you turn the key to the lock position. You can go into the door in a lot of cars, find the wire from the door lock switch that turns the alarm on when you remotely lock it, and you can disconnect that. But some of them, like this one, go through the body control module with the remote. So if you arm it with the key fob, it's gonna shut the thing.
Can you just
turn
leave
the
it
thing on.
unlocked all the time?
Sure.
I mean, not that I mean, I don't know.
But if you're using the buttons, the push buttons in the door to lock it,
Mhm.
and then using the remote to unlock it, yeah, you could disconnect the wire in the door
Okay.
that triggers it and just push the button down and close the door.
Dwayne, good luck.
Oh,
Sorry,
it's tough.
sorry to give you that news. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us 866-594-4150.
Get under the hood. Call the Motor Medics, 866-594-4150.
From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show, 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Jim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
I'm thinking of purchasing a cordless impact wrench that would be used in part to remove lug nuts on a passenger car. Could you just briefly talk about the 3/8 anvil versus the 1/2-inch anvil? And do you recommend a hog ring versus a detent pin design on a impact wrench?
I got all that. You get that, Shannon?
I did.
All
I got one question that I'm not sure about, but I'm going to let you go, and then I'll tell you what I was thinking about.
I'm just curious, Jim. Are you gonna try and do them real fast like NASCAR? Because
I am not a fan. I am not a fan of the hog ring myself.
No, because they wear out.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of the hog ring impact wrenches. So on the end of your impact wrench where your socket slides on, they'll either have a big round clip they call them hog rings, or they'll have a little ball bearing with a spring that pushes down. I haven't had a ball
Like
bearing with
normal,
a spring. Right.
like a normal. I mean, that's
like a socket wrench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will find very few socket ratchets with a hog ring on the end, although there's a few out there, and they're usually pretty cheap. But the detent ball is the way I'd go first, and I'd always go with a 1/2 inch over a 3/8 because of the strength for taking off the lug nuts. You don't getting them on that. You're not going to be super torquing them. You could use a torque stick in order to tighten them up, but I'd go with a 1/2 inch. I'd go with a detent ball, and there's tons of really good ones out there. Makita, Milwaukee, DeWalt. They all make really good 1/2 inch drivers versus a Snap-on or a Matco or something like that. There's going to be a huge difference. We were actually, our guy was telling me yesterday in the shop, he goes, Russ, you seen how much these cordless impacts are going for lately? I'm like, no. He goes, look at this one, $500. Look at this one, $750. I'm like, for a cordless impact, what are they smoking? They're crazy. I can go down and buy basically the same Milwaukee or DeWalt or any of those things that we just mentioned. You could pick those up for like $250. And sometimes you get two in the same, a 3/8 and a 1/2. It's like, yeah, I can't believe how much the prices have gone up on some of those. But that's what I would use. And if you've got a vehicle that you're doing this on regularly, you can buy a single torque stick that is designed just for your vehicle. Let's say you want a torque stick designed for 100 pounds. But look at your torque sticks, because it'll say this will give you a 100-pound tightening on this lug nut if the torque input from the cordless driver is between, let's say it says between 150 and 200 pounds. If you've got one that produces 400 pounds, no, the torque stick doesn't work anymore.
Well, how about that, Jim? I mean, you got a specific answer there for you.
Yeah, that's why I called.
And I will throw,
Thanks very much for the
I
call.
will throw in on this that our outside dismantlers and now inside dismantlers use these tools like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the overwhelming consensus of my group I have now, and this whole debate between power tools can get it just like Ford, Chevy, GM, Toyota.
What color's your driver?
Yeah, I mean, it can
It's
all get
blue,
just as
it's green,
debatable.
it's red.
And once you've spent a bunch of money on something, yours is better.
Right.
So
Yeah.
not many are willing to admit the truth.
Yeah.
But our crew overwhelmingly has found the Milwaukee stuff to work and be the most efficient, affordable. And if you have the torque sticks that Russ talked about, don't ever loosen anything with them.
Right.
They are for tightening only.
One way.
So otherwise you'll mess them up. And that the tools have gotten way better. The 1/2 inch stuff, you can break things with it. So be careful if you're using it on other jobs.
Talking about Snap-on or DeWalt. What about my Rough and Tough set? Is that the $19?
If it works for you, it's good.
Let's talk to Don in Pennsylvania. Don, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, I got an 04 Jeep Laredo, Grand Cherokee Laredo, and the cooling fan was not kicking in. It went up to 230, didn't turn on. I shut it off. I read some schematics online, and it appears that the 04 has a different fan relay than, or sensor than the other ones do. It's not, and I haven't been able to find it yet. But anyhow, guy at work said, hey, why don't you check the refrigerant on it, see if the fan actually works. But before I did that, I hot-wired the fan and knew it worked, but I wanted to see if the controls would work on it. So it was down about a pound of refrigerant, so I threw a pound in it, and it fired that fan when I turned it on AC. But I cannot get that fan to run in normal conditions without the AC running.
Okay, your engine temperature sensor that tells the computer and the gauge where you're at, that should be telling you, if you've got a scan tool plugged into it, you should be able to read the engine computer, and it should say if the fans are on or not and what temperature it is. So that's the first step. Read it, see if your computer says, okay,
Yep.
The fan's on, we're 200, let's say we're 220, and it says the fan is on. If it's commanding it on, then we need to go to the output of that computer with a multimeter, voltmeter, and read it and see if it's actually triggering that relay, because we know we can command that relay with the AC. The relay might be bad though, because it is a two-part relay. You've got a high speed for the AC and then low speed for the other. So, but it is possible that the driver's out. We had a Jeep, an 07. Yours is a 4, but we had an 07 in about a month or two ago, and it had a problem with the fan and some oxygen sensor stuff in it, and it turned out to be the computer was bad, the driver was bad coming out of it.
And you got to get this fixed, because on some vehicles, they've got dual fans. One is the high-speed fan that comes on with the air conditioning. The other one runs at regular speed. But on that motor, you probably got a 4.7 in there, I'm guessing. And that motor, if you don't keep it cool, you will take out head gaskets, and you will need a replacement motor. Replacement motors can get very expensive and hard to find for those, so make sure you take care of that problem, because you'll be searching for a while.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is coming up. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturtevant's. And if you're streaming the show right now, we're going to click off hour 1, and we're going to start hour 2 in just a minute. So hang with us. This feed's going to stop, and we will be back in just a second. Thanks very much.